Ever since my first YouTube appearance, if you will, back in May 2018 when I was being interviewed as the new voiceover narrator for Game Over Jesse on the Highland Gamescast, which I am now a co-host for, I've received a plethora of comments via those live streams or my own, different types of social media, and my own videos saying that I somewhat resembled Princess Zelda. Which specific Zelda varies, of course, depending on who's commenting. I think it might be the ears. Yeah, I'm not wearing these the whole time, they're heavy. I don't know how I wore these for like 5 hours at the Symphony of the Goddesses 2 years ago. 2 years ago? 3 years ago. So long ago. While these comments are certainly flattering, as I would love to cosplay as pretty much any version of her at some point, I never really thought I looked like her at all. Not any version of her, mainly because none of them have curly hair. I mean, I figured the connection people made was pretty similar to the reason people also say I look like Astrid from How to Train Your Dragon, someone I definitely want to cosplay. Light skin, light hair, light eyes. Not really anything more than that. I mean, most of them have far more yellowish hair, or at least a lot lighter hair than I do, and none of them are curly, as I said. Their eyes tend to be blue, whereas mine are more sea green, which is like a mix of blue and green. It's complicated. So I never really thought the resemblance was that strong, but still the comments were flattering. However, since I would like to cosplay as one of them one day, it got me thinking, who do I most resemble, both in appearance and personality? Hey y'all, I'm the Geek Apprentice, and yes, it is still Hunger Games month, but seeing as it is also Zelda month, and I love each of these subjects in their own way, I figured there was no harm in doing videos on both of these topics. Alright, so there are several incarnations of the goddess Hylia, each with their own traits and personality and quirks and style, while there are definitely some overlaps, obvious overlaps in both appearance and personality. And I took to YouTube, Instagram, and my Discord to get y'all's thoughts on which one you thought I most resembled, and I will definitely be taking those thoughts and answers into account. In fact, I'm actually going to look into the results of those polls first, and then afterwards give my own 2 cents on which one I think I actually truly resemble the best, because I think, seeing as I'm the one that looks in a mirror every day and I probably know my personality best, I'm probably the best judge of that. But I could also be the worst judge based on all of that too, who knows? So beginning with the input y'all provided. In terms of appearance versus personality, the results were kind of inconclusive, seeing as most people just voted or just commented without giving much of an answer as to why. Some did give me further details, and that was very helpful. On the YouTube poll, Skyward Sword Zelda won by a landslide. Again, no idea if it's for appearance, personality, or both, but my guess is personality took a big part in this. The reason I'm sure it's personality is because I'm well aware that the vibe I give off when one first meets me or has very few interactions with me is more of a sweet, innocent, playful type personality, very reminiscent of Skyward Sword Zelda. Other sources yielded varying results, with Breath of the Wild Zelda probably being the most prominent, but there were definitely a couple for A Link Between Worlds Zelda as well. It's ironic that it's these 3 main Zeldas, Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, and A Link Between Worlds, that ended up being the most prominent, because in my own analysis, they were also the most prominent. Now, before I go into my personal analysis, I want you to remember 2 things. One is that I did this analysis before I took into account the results and comments from other people. Those came into play later. And to be honest, it didn't really end up changing too much. It just kind of made me go, oh, interesting. And 2, a fair bit of this is definitely based on my perception of each Zelda, especially when it comes to personality. Starting with appearance, we can rule out several Zeldas from the get-go. Actually, every single 2D Zelda except for A Link Between Worlds Zelda. Despite what you might think, it's not because they are 2D sprites, a lot of them. In fact, even for the 3D games, I'm referring to their concept art or their game guide art, you know, the real look, not their 2D sprite. And sure, the first Zelda does have sort of curly hair, but it's also kind of brown, so nope. So, moving forward, we're keeping A Link Between Worlds Zelda in the running. And yes, I know she's pretty much the same as A Link to the Past Zelda, but A Link Between Worlds Zelda is more childlike in her face and just her overall appearance and personality, so that's why I'm going with her, even though we're not at personality yet, but anyway. Now what about the 3D titles? Ocarina of Time? No, not at all. She's not in the running. I mean, she has very pointed features and looks far more regal than I do. More adult than most 17-year-olds would, but anyway. And even the 3D remake kind of makes her look more like Princess Peach in my opinion. As for Wind Waker, yeah, well, Tetra, the only thing we have in common is that we've got short legs. And frankly, I don't think I look like her Zelda form at all. Like, even her hair is very, very different from mine. Twilight Princess? Again, pointed features, also brown hair. Nope. Skyward Sword Zelda? Well, the hair is an obvious issue. However, her face and her overall shape, much more similar to me, so we'll keep her in the running with A Link Between Worlds Zelda. Breath of the Wild? Okay, now we're getting somewhere because I can kind of see that, at least way more than the others, so now let's talk about our three main choices. Between the specific hair color and the bangs, I think that Skyward Sword and A Link Between Worlds Zelda are just automatically out. Hair is a big thing. But that just leaves Breath of the Wild Zelda, and really, how much of a resemblance is there? More than I thought, but still arguably not much. While our hair is nothing alike, we actually both have a heart-shaped face, a rounder nose, similar-ish body types, and our eye colors are similar. While hers are more of a striking green, mine is more of that in-between blue and green, because when I'm out in sunlight, which they say is the best way to tell what your natural eye color is, or actual eye color, mine are actually legitimately sea green. I didn't know that was a specific color choice. So as far as appearance goes, Breath of the Wild Zelda. I'm pretty darn okay with that. Personality is where things get a little bit tougher. Once again, we can go ahead and rule out all 2D Zeldas for this. Ocarina of Time, too reserved, too regal. Wind Waker, she's either too hostile or too bland. Twilight Princess, well, we hardly get any personality from her because of her lack of on-screen game time. Skyward Sword, okay, we need to talk about some things, but she's in the running. And Breath of the Wild is in the same boat as Skyward Sword, so let's talk about that. As aforementioned, many compare me to Skyward Sword Zelda for her personality because she's sweet, kind, childlike, playful, and a little bit adventurous. And while the comparison is sweet, there are several flaws here. As much as I love the Skyward Sword story and Skyward Sword Zelda in general, I like to think that I'm a little bit more than just a girly schoolgirl. That was redundant, but I'm keeping it in. I'm also certainly nowhere near as forward as Skyward Sword Zelda is. She's pretty outspoken about Link not being prepared because he hasn't really been training, and she also pushes him off a ledge. These are things that I just wouldn't ever do. And honestly, I would not have stood up to Groose. I would have said things maybe behind his back to Link about how much I didn't like him and how much of a jerk he is, but I would have just gotten Link out of the situation and been like, hey, ignore him. I don't like confrontation, and even what she does, I don't really have the bravery to do. I should, but I don't. That said, I cannot deny I would sooner be friends with that version of Zelda than Breath of the Wild Zelda, for what that's worth. Here's the thing about Breath of the Wild Zelda versus Skyward Sword Zelda. For Skyward Sword, many people just kind of compare our natures, which are somewhat similar, I suppose, but it's not really personality traits, whereas when it comes to Breath of the Wild, then we have something. Our overall nature and mannerisms, yes, very different, but our personality, very much similar. She loves learning, like a true Ravenclaw would. She's independent and stubborn. Yeah, that's me. She can get emotionally burdened quite easily, but will still do what she's got to do, even if she's got to fake a face for it. She's easily frustrated with technology, but also adventurous. And lastly, she knows what her duties are as a royal princess of Hyrule, and she will not shirk them because she knows it's what's right. While at a glance you may not think that's anything like me, I can assure you it screams my personality, as much as a video game character can. Who knows, Breath of the Wild 2 might change this. For sure, I would never be as rude or as passive as she is toward Link, but that's honestly the only difference, as major as it is. Everything else lines up pretty well. So to sum up, on the surface, sure, maybe I somewhat resemble Skyward Sword Zelda to many, but my mind, heart, and soul far more coincide with that of the personality of Breath of the Wild Zelda, which is ironically perfect since I've already determined that I look more like her than any other Zelda. I'm sure I tricked you guys by wearing this necklace, but I just wanted to wear it because it was Zelda and Zelda, so yeah. To be honest, I would rather wear the dress of Skyward Sword Zelda or A Link Between Worlds Zelda, but I can make do. Maybe I can wear the white gown she dons in some parts of the game. When I first came up with this video idea, I definitely did not think Breath of the Wild Zelda was going to be in the running for either category. And yet she ended up being the winner for both. At least, based on what I think of myself. Y'all, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on this, most especially who you think you resemble in the Zelda series, whether it's personality, appearance, or both. I've always found it really fun to see parts of yourself, or lots of parts of yourself, in stories, whether they're from video games or books or movies or what have you. Also, if you enjoyed this video, maybe consider subscribing if you haven't already. Also, a huge shout out and thank you to all of my patrons. Thank you Lorulian Sheep, Cheap Seats, JokingBatman, and Sushi Bandit, and all of my supporters so very much. But anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching.